Women. We are so fucking cool.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Women Are So Fucking Cool. This is a little special episode of this podcast. And what makes it so special? A few things. I decided to keep my face in the interview. Nancy and I ended up having this amazing conversation. And as I was editing it, trying to think if I could shorten it to under 30 minutes, but I was like, I'm going to share this because Nance Schick is a fucking cool woman and she had some amazing things to say. She and I knew each other in New York City. She's a lawyer. She's now living in Virginia. So it was just a fabulous reconnection to someone I used to know and discovered that I always knew she was really fucking cool, but she's so fucking smart. And as a mediation lawyer, it was just fascinating to have some of those conversations because it was so relevant about what's happening today. There's so much conflict going on, right? So we need a lot of mediators. Yeah. And so you're going to get to see my studio behind me, which I usually hide in the intros, but this is going to be a great episode of Nancy and Joanne talking. And yeah, so enjoy the show. Yeah, so Nancy and I have known each other for many years, and I'm very interested and curious to hear her definition of a fucking cool woman.
You want to hear it now?
I want to hear it now. Tell us.
No, suspense.
Yeah.
So I think for me, what a fucking cool woman is, it's a person who basically lifts other people up, right? Somebody who challenges us to think a little differently about some things and is always looking for somebody that's struggling. But there's also this like balance in there that I feel like I need to say, because for me, I also recognize that there's a fine line between empowering and enabling. And I've had a lot of addicts in my life. So I've definitely had some training around that. And so I think that's another big part of it, is it's someone who is constantly working on themselves so that they're making sure that the contribution that they have in the world is of greatest value. So I think it's a lot of things that come in to rising to the level of a fucking cool woman, right? It's not like there are a lot of cool people out there in the world, right? Some of them are women or identify as women, some of them don't, but they're still fucking cool, right? So I think it's multi-layered for me, but that's how I see almost everything in the world. So that doesn't surprise me that that would be my answer, and probably does not surprise you.
No, but I think you're right. I think there are multi-layers, we're human. And I think as a FCW, that's somebody who recognizes these layers and is willing to, acknowledge, the good and the bad, but moving forward. And I think it's really interesting that you said the word empower, because I've really kind of stepped away from that word too. I can't empower you. We can encourage you. And I think that's a difference too, you know?
Yeah, although I think the way that I understand in power is I'm not giving you the power. I'm helping you see that you have it, right? Because that's what I think happens. I know for myself that was definitely it. I was constantly handing my power over to other people and then feeling powerless, but I was giving away more than I could, right? And that's why I said I've learned a lot about this, because you grow up in certain environments, and I think a lot of us are in that situation, and that we feel like we have to earn everything. You have to earn love, you have to earn money. And then you go into an environment, I work in workplaces, right? So I work in employment. So I think what happens is a lot of times people who have developed these codependent or unhealthy ways of coping in their lives then end up working for employers that embody the abuser, the addict, all the unhealthy things. And we unfortunately have developed workplaces that way.
Yeah. I've thought about that. I mean, I get that. But I've never really had a conversation with an FCW about that. I mean, I'm really fascinated with that's very interesting. And and I've been really fortunate. I haven't had to work with a lot of unhealthy environments for too long because I've
Good.
been very free. I'm able to leave jobs quickly and not like something. So I think primarily because of that, because I'm not sticking around these codependent, unhealthy relationships. Um,
Right.
and I think that is where FCWs have a responsibility because we do have responsibility as citizens of this planet, of the country, of the city, of the neighborhood, whatever community, and we have responsibility to that community. And I think that responsibility is to really help guide and lead and show example how you can function with other people in healthy, emotionally mature ways.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that I can see again in myself. And we were talking before we came on to the actual recording, because we have known each other for so long, the evolution, right, that
Uh-huh.
we've gone through. And I can see how, I have to constantly be working on setting aside the new stuff. So, right, like that's the other part is I've done a lot of healing, but life is going to keep throwing me new things that are going to challenge me. And if I'm not constantly aware and shedding it and working through it, then I just end up repeating patterns that I don't want. And I think because I'm in a position where people are relying heavily on me to help them sort out some of their most difficult times, I have a heightened sense of responsibility. It's not easy, and I understand why people don't do it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But I also understand that once you get past that, once you push through and realize you're not going to fall apart and be in a puddle on the floor for the rest of your life, you might do that for an hour here and there, but that's part of everything else. You just let it flow through you. And part of the problem is that we shove it down. We don't deal with it until it's so big that it explodes. Right.
yeah.
So I've learned all of this. And at this point, I do feel this deep sense of responsibility. I'm also aware that I have privileges as a white woman in America at this time, right? I've been given opportunities. I've worked my butt off for a lot of them too. So I'm aware that I'm here to use what I have. It doesn't mean I'm going to save the world. That's not right. I can't change the past. But what I can do is look in my corner of the world and where I can make an impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what most FCWs do.
Yes, exactly. We were just on a call last night, and one of the one that was talking about she realized when she started thinking about her life purpose or her life that's her design, and she wanted to find financial security, but she realized once she started making money or understanding her finances better, that wasn't the reason she wanted to do the work that she was doing. She wanted to create a legacy to show people how others can take that ownership over their finances as well. And it's not something you have to, you know, believe all the lies that they've told us about money and debt and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're really I say this a lot. I love that we're disrupting the system. You know, we're changing how we're aging, we're changing how we are in relationships, we're changing how the jobs we're doing and how we're doing those jobs, um,
Right.
and the careers that we're doing. They may have been traditional male jobs, and now, you know, women are taking them and making a balance because we were talking about that too, you know, how important it is to have a balance of the masculine and the feminine
Yeah.
and all the work that we do.
Yeah. And I think that's something else that we're seeing some pushback around it, right? Because it feels so foreign, it feels threatening. And every society has gone through this, right? When there's major change, it's scary for the people that have been in power. And I think back to, I believe she may have also been an FCW in New York with us, but I had a conversation with another female entrepreneur about our age, right? About the time we met, and hanging out in New York. And we were talking about like the resistance to people having money, to right, to more people having, an equitable share of all the good. And it's like, I remember that was the first time I had heard equality and fairness. It's not pie, right? And I think, and so that has stuck with me. It's like, and look, even if it were pie, you can make more pie.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So I think that's what I'm at this stage of my life, I'm recognizing that we just need to help people see that, not just that it's possible, but actually do it, right? Because we're human. We don't have great imaginations. Like some of us really don't. I mean, and probably even those of us like you that are creative, you have moments and spaces in your life where you need it to be black and white. You need it to be simple. You need a process. So, that's one of the things I work on with people is developing blueprints, plans, processes for moving through conflict. And it doesn't matter what my opinion is of what you're doing, right? Now, obviously, I'm not going to advise you to do something that's harmful to another human being or ideally to anything, right? To the environment or anything else. But ultimately, it's about you figuring out what works for you. It's why I said, we work in our little communities. And that's where, this, I work in the DEI space, which, oh, right.
We're DI
It's
here.
ridiculous. I'm doing a whole series, a webinar series on that, so that we don't have to approach that particularly. But I think that one of the things even there is recognizing that it can be done and it needs to be done. We also have the legal issues around that. And it's not what people think, but they get so mixed up because they can't even fathom, which also is a big indicator, right? If you can't even fathom what it looks like when women are empowered and people of color are empowered, then isn't that exact evidence that it doesn't exist yet? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to be able to see it to have it. You have to be able to
Right,
see
because
it.
and so that's what and we have to do it at these little levels because I can't change what happened 400 years ago, but I can change what happens today
Yeah.
and lay a foundation that is most likely to produce results that we would prefer to see. Because
Yeah.
I do think that the more I talk to people of all walks of life, we really are still looking for the same things. It's just the amygdala, right, gets triggered, and that's where we can't imagine it being any other way. And so having a plan,
Yeah.
executing that plan in small ways, right? Not necessarily with complete safety, right? But different people have different, just like in investing, you have different risk tolerance. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing whether you're an activist, an artist, whatever you are, everybody has a different risk tolerance. And then that risk tolerance might apply differently in different places. So we work with all of that. And it's fine. You're just human.
Right. Right. Work with what you have. Yeah, definitely. Start with where
Yeah.
you are for sure. And it's true. We all have different, a lot of people say, "Oh, you're so courageous." And I'm like, I feel like I'm a big old scaredy cat sometimes, like,
Right, because probably for you, a lot of the choices that you've made seemed like the safest one for you at the time.
Right.
I see that for myself. Like starting my law practice, people would say, wow, that was so courageous. You just like left your job and started a law practice. And I was like, I didn't really see it happening that way, but at the moment that I left the job, that seemed certain, right? And it seemed like the safest way to get myself out of a situation that I wasn't sure was healthy.
Hmm.
A lot of other things. I won't go into it because it's a long time ago.
Right.
But I didn't see that as being courageous. If anything, I kept beating myself up for not sticking it out and turning everything around where I was. That to me seemed like a more courageous thing to do. And so I think that's always interesting too, is remembering that where you're looking from and where I'm looking from are very different.
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing, we shouldn't be judging anything. You shouldn't be judging it, you know? It's,
Yeah.
yeah, make these choices and trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Yeah. And just keep looking for solutions. That's the
Oh,
other part of it, right? Is that so much of my work is about helping people let go of the focus on what happened and who's to blame, because yes, sometimes you need to still address that. I
yeah.
absolutely don't want to, I don't want to give people permission to treat each other poorly. That's not what we're talking about. But in order for me to help the parties move forward, we have to start looking into the future, which means we have to go, how do I get you from here to here? Right. And the only way to do that is with a solutions focus,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise we're looking in the past. And that means we're just going to hang out there. And I've been there, done that, spent way too much time in my past
Oh my
trying
God.
to fix it. And that's absolutely impossible.
Yeah. Every time I talk to mediators, I'm like, I totally want to be a mediator. I just would love to help people come to resolution, you know?
Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, I've had to make choices with other people. However, I've never made it to a place where it's unresolvable on our own terms, you know? And my heart hurts for people who can't do that, you know? And I think we need more mediators with public governments too.
You were preaching to the choir there, because as you're saying that, I was like, that's one of the things I often tell people is one of the reasons that attorneys, this came to me probably in the past year, the awareness of why people pay attorneys so much and why it's not smart to do it. So, well, it's twofold, right? So the main reason that people will pay attorneys a lot, especially trial attorneys, litigators, right, is they're paying to try to force the other person to do something they couldn't get them to do. And they're willing to throw a lot of money at that to try to force something. And there's in the best day, it's a 50-50 chance that you're going to get that, right? So what I always say is like, stop spending all of that money there. You are much more, as you just kind of pointed to, you're much more likely to get a result you can live with if you create it yourself, right? It's the quote that I think was credited to Abraham Lincoln incorrectly, but it's the best way to predict your future is to create it. But that's kind of what we do, regardless of who said it. That's kind of what we do in mediation is we help you create your future. Otherwise, you're going to go to court, right? And you're going to go in front of a bunch of people that don't know you, who probably have, like, if you're in front of a judge, there's a huge docket, minimum they have 30 cases that day, right? And so yours is one of many. It's your life, absolutely, and it's consumed you. But to that judge or to the jury's going, what's for lunch and are they paying? That doesn't mean they're not still paying attention and somewhat invested, but they don't have the same interest you have. So it's so much better for you to try to resolve this outside of court. And I do not understand why we have not gotten that message. I think some of it is because the courts are mostly paid for, and they're not looking at the numbers. That's part of what I address a lot with clients now and in my work is just crunching the numbers for people.
Yeah.
Like it's easily a $5,000 investment versus a $50,000 investment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
that's
yeah.
those aren't exact numbers, but those
Right.
are
Right.
those are
But
good
yeah,
estimates. Yeah.
no, that makes sense. Yeah. They don't make slick, sexy mediation dramas on television.
Because we actually try to minimize the drama, right? We help you work through it. And it's true, right? Like I've said so often, I watch TV, I watch movies or something, right? Anything that I'm watching these days, I go, do you realize there'd be no show? Like there'd be no show at all if people were not terrible to each other. Like, do you realize
Yeah.
how many movies, television shows, songs, right?
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
Like there would be nothing to watch if we didn't fabricate these terrible behaviors. And
Yeah.
then the worst part about it is people see that and they start mimicking it and
Yeah.
mirroring it.
Yeah.
No, that's why it's entertaining, is because
Yeah.
it's supposed to be rare. It's not, otherwise
Right.
you could go, like, if I want drama, I could go home to
Yeah.
my family, right? Not where I live currently, but to my family of origin.
Yeah.
They love
Yeah.
drama.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, it's so crazy. So tell me about some women that you think are fucking cool.
Wow, there's so many. I met with two of them, interestingly, earlier today. Um, I think, again, these are women who, for me, and they embrace change, right? So these are two women that I just met here locally. And, you know, on the surface, they look like just average people, but they're in their communities, they're making a difference. One is a coach. She coaches cancer patients. She's a cancer survivor, and she coaches them on things like mindset while you're going through your treatment, keeping your energy up with the right types of eating and getting some exercise. And then the other one advises women on how to build a financial future. Right. And so, it's like recognizing the mindset and all of these things. But I could also look at women that I've gone and heard. Like I had the enormous pleasure of being at a conference last fall and got to hear Kimberly Crenshaw speak. Now, she is one of the founders of CRT, right? Critical race theory.
Mhm.
And she will explain it to you that like it's not what it's been made out to be. It's a legal theory. It's a theory. It's a concept that we're exploring as we're looking for solutions, right? And so I think she's amazing. I think you're amazing. I wouldn't be here, right? I've seen other FCWs. I I'm amazed since you and I have reconnected to FCW over the years, how many people I could go, wait, I met that person through FCW, or I learned about that issue through FCW. So I could go on, right, with all the amazing women that I'm constantly meeting.
Yeah.
And that's both people who were born female, right, or
Yep.
identified as female, right, and now choose to be women. I meet people.
Uh, I always say if you identify as a fucking cool woman, you are a fucking cool woman,
Right.
because I'm pro-choice. That's bottom line. We have to choose what we know we have to choose. Yeah. So
Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure out what man and woman mean.
interesting. Yeah.
Right? Like all of that. And the thing is even because I'm in that space, right? Like, okay, so I don't always understand it for myself or how others identify. So what? You know what else I don't understand? Nuclear physics. That doesn't mean it needs to go away. We don't need a law against nuclear physics just because Nancy doesn't understand it.
Oh, that it's so true. It's so true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's we're human beings first and foremost. We're
Yeah.
human. We have we're a species, Homo sapien.
Right.
And there's, a lot of different, after that, it's just, oh yeah, we humans, we complicate things. We just do.
Yeah,
We
and
really do.
we spend a lot of time, unfortunately, looking over there for what you need to do differently to make my life better.
Yeah.
And that's why we got into that conversation about the empowerment versus enablement or enabling, right? It's like it's it's a delicate balance. It's usually well intended,
Yeah.
but there's always, and one of my mentors and coaches, who's still a dear friend of mine, once said to me, "You're never going to be able to remove yourself from this." Because I kept going, "It's not about me, it's about this." And he goes, "How can your life be about anybody other than you?"
Mic drop.
Like,
It's always
of
about you.
course. Right? So like the moms, and I love that they adore their kids and they want to give their kids everything, but you're giving them everything that you think they need. And that's why they still grow up, myself included, finding something I wish my mom had given me differently. And adored my mom. She was
Yeah.
the most wonderful woman. She was an FCW and she raised me to be one.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. No, it's true. We have to, put ourselves first, not selfishly in a self-centered kind of way, but in a taking care of ourselves kind of way so that we can support and help take care of other things and other people when necessary.
Right, but it's also the nuance there of recognizing that everything you do has a you component.
Yeah.
So you may be striving, right? This is the old, is there any true altruism, right? You're always striving, like even when you're trying to give your clients or whoever everything and trying to be selfless, right? Selfless does not mean without self. Otherwise, we would say, without self. It's selfless. That's fine to think about yourself a little bit less in the conversation, but you're still there, right? And if you're not aware of that, you bring your own garbage into it. And then you can actually, even with the best intentions, cause harm.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's really, really, really true. Oh, yeah. When you think you started knowing that you were a fucking cool woman?
Um, I don't know if I really have fully embraced it. I think when you mentioned that you might ask that question, I was like, oh God, what am I going to say? But, but I'd like to think that it's an ongoing pursuit, right? So I think I'm an FCW in training, and the training never ends.
I love it. Good
Right?
answer.
Right, because there's always a way to
Yeah.
level up.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying that she was fine with always needing to learn more, right? And to always need to strive for more. And she said, because when you figure it all out, you're done here, and I'm not ready to go.
Yeah. I think it's true. I think that's really, really true. I agree with that 100%. Um, and
There's
so
still a lot I want to do here. Yeah.
I know, right? I know. Yeah, I know. Um, and we've kind of been talking about this, but I'd really love to hear some more of your insight about the work that you do and how you bring respect, encourage, and celebrate into your work as mediation. Because I think I could just, I think you have to find ways to respect both parties.
Yeah.
You need to encourage communication and compromise. I mean, this is the top of my head. And then we got to celebrate a success, but I'd love to hear,
Yeah.
what your thoughts are.
And so yeah, I think the respect is just automatic, and I don't take cases where I'm struggling, right, with respect for someone. And I'll give you a specific example without giving a case away, is someone that comes to me and is not really ready to mediate. You know, they're using the mediation process. You can usually tell they're using it as a discovery process where they want to get the other person in to try and figure out what's going on in their head so that they can work them more in the court case, right? I can usually sniff those out, and I don't respect people that do that. I can tell they don't respect me and my role, so I won't take that. So one of the ways I respect the parties is by selecting the cases carefully that I'll take on. I want to make sure that I'm competent. I have an ethical duty to make sure that I'm competent with that. And I think that's the first piece. And then I lay those ground rules, right? That we treat each other with respect. This is an exploration. We're going to have a few ground rules. Some people don't like it framed that way, so I'm not being a disciplinarian. It's more to, again, be focused on the solution and yet give you space to express emotion. So that's the other part of the respect, is respecting that they're human beings. And different from a court process, I will allow you to be angry as long as it's not directed at the other person or at me, as long as it's a healthy expression of anger. If you need to cry, you can cry. If you giggle uncontrollably because you're nervous, that's okay too. We embrace and respect the human. And then in the encourage process is really encouraging them to say the things that they don't want to say, but in a kind way, right? Because most of my work, I think, at this point is about helping people say difficult things, right? We've never had to say, Joanne, when you did that thing, it reminded me of this experience that I had that was so painful. And I can't now stop thinking about you being the demon, right? We don't have language for that. So I try to guide through that process. And, something I always tell people is I work in employment because it gives us universal language. Everybody has a job, has had a job, or knows someone with a job. But these skills that we learn in mediation and that I try to instill in people, you can take home. And I hear that regularly is, when I think I could use that with my wife. Yes, you can, right? Listening to your wife is a good idea. Listening to your spouse, right? So I've seen that happen too. And so it's an encouragement toward a solution. And it's also an encouragement that's encourage and empower, right? The best parts of ourselves, right? Because we're all capable of so much more than we ever imagine. I think there have been plenty of studies over the years that say we're only using a fraction of our brains. We're only using a fraction of our potential. And my goal is, let's bring out your best where it fits into developing community, developing strong relationships. Those also are going to make you happy. Right. So my goal is to have you be happy, have them be happy, have us learn how to work through conflict instead of acting like we can somehow avoid it. Because conflict is always going to occur as long as you're a living human being. And so isn't it better for you to develop the skills
Yeah.
than to spend your life running from it? And as someone who was a runner, it's like I say that knowing my life is better when I might not do it right in the moment, but I will go back and I will take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you said celebrate. So that's the last piece of it is, it's interesting. The celebration in mediation is maybe also why people sometimes opt for the court case, because they imagine the dramatic walking out of the courtroom and the media there and tell us how it went, right? The debriefing like it's a sporting event. And that's not going to happen in a mediation, right? It might be you shook hands and you sat down and you wrote out a contract and then you both signed it. Right? Like there's not necessarily woo champagne, right? And we like our drama. Humans, we like our drama, but it's actually not that healthy for us. Just like we like junk food and vegetables are healthier.
Right, right. I know, I know, I know, I know. I'd love really quickly because I'd love to also hear about um, how you have been targeting men for as your clients. I'd like to hear some of the experience about that. What um
So it's interesting. Like in one way, I don't know that I specifically target
yeah,
men, but it's an open invitation. And I do think a big part of it is it's what I'm writing about in my second book, right? Is tackling this new paradigm or multiple. I think it's actually more of a multiple. We need more options instead of the what some people would say a highly masculine approach to running businesses, right? Which is I have to be the best. I have to dominate, right? And so it's really more of these collaborative models, these conscious capitalist types of models. I've been saying collaborative capitalism is kind of the phrase that I'm using. I think I've coined that. I haven't checked to see if anybody else did, but that's what we're looking at is an invitation for men also, right? To have other options because it's not that I think this is by any means deeply ingrained, like you come out and because you've been identified based on your genitalia, you're a man, or you're a future man, you're a male baby, you're a future man, and therefore you shall do business this way. I don't think it happens that way, right? And I think a lot of it is that we just don't know other ways because if you go to I won't name organizations because I don't want to defame anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel bad. But typically, the organizations that help small businesses follow the model that is the one that, right? Like, so it's like we're just perpetuating the system. And there was a book I read years ago called Big Enough Company. And it was written by women, right? And so it's basically this invitation for men to play with other business models, recognizing that a lot of them are not happy with the way things are being done. You do like most of us, myself included, you get on the corporate ladder, right? And you keep trying to go up, and it's actually a treadmill. Right? And you're getting some exercise, but you're not going anywhere, right? And so, I think a lot of people get to a certain degree or a certain level in their career, certain age, something happens, they get sick, or, some major tragedy occurs that we don't, I want to give you an option that says you don't have to wait for that,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to wait for that to do business differently. And it's absolutely okay for you to build a business that supports you in your life, right? And I'm not the only one, of course, that's been promoting these ideas, but we don't have good models to follow. And so that's where I think we need men who have innovative ideas. We need women who have them, and we just need maybe a mediator to help us come together to have conversations to say, there's no perfect model. And most of us are, the way I described it recently is most of us have been chasing and playing this certain game. And we're not winning, but it's also it's not because we couldn't. It's because that's not the game we really want to play. So what I'm trying to do is invite people to give me ideas on how we create some other options and have real plans for it. And then how do we do that? Like we do everything. We can't wait for other corporations to do it. We can't wait for big corporate educational systems to do it for us. We can't wait for the government to do it for us. We have to build it ourselves.
yeah.
So it's a lot of that is recognizing that men bring a certain masculine energy that's valuable, but maybe they need to look at the other parts of themselves and be okay with that. We need to create some space for that and not have to choose, right? Like I work in both spaces, and that's what we were, I think, trying to get into is that I have been in very male dominated spaces throughout my career. So I'm learning to embrace more of my feminine energy as not necessarily choosing, but it informing some of the places where I need to round out my knowledge, round out my experience, and find solutions that I hadn't been looking at because they were in my feminine energy. And that's what we're inviting men to do too. And we're inviting women to take a look over there, right? There's and everywhere in between, right? There are solutions out there in the world because the world is vast. Let's play with the full deck.
Yeah,
I hope I
definitely.
answered your question with
Oh,
that.
definitely. Oh no, this is so good. Very, very good. So good. Um, but it is time for us to close. We're time
Yes.
to get going. We have things to do. But what's your final words of wisdom you'd like to share to, you know, to someone?
I want to end with the same way I end all my videos, which is keep listening with your third ear for the hurt you can heal. And the thing I don't normally say is it's implied, but heal the ones you can. You don't have to take on everything, but heal what you can. Heal what's within your control, especially if you caused it.
Yeah.
Thanks again for watching. And again, my name is Joanne Morton, and I am the founder of the FCW Society. And I would like to invite you to check out what we do at FCW on our website or go to the links below. And if you know somebody who's an FCW or you are a fucking cool woman and would love to be on the podcast, please definitely fill out the form and I'll be in touch with you. And for everyone else, thank you again and again and again for watching and listening. And if you did enjoy this podcast, please like it, share it with one of your friends, and subscribe. That's right. All right. Until next time, keep being your fucking cool selves.